For decades, Western media has painted the Amazon rainforest as a serene, untouched Eden. But the daily reality for those inside is a relentless struggle to stay alive in an environment that never stops trying to kill you. Deep in the Peruvian Amazon live the Mashco Puro. They are a nomadic tribe functioning entirely without metal or agriculture, effectively existing 1,000 years in the past. Their days are defined by a brutal, calorie-driven war for survival. Every calorie gathered is a victory against starvation, and every night survived is a victory against the jungle itself. To inhabit such a hostile world, the tribe has adapted into the forest's apex predators, mastering the art of lethal deception to protect their kin. When outsiders approach their territory, the Mashco Puro do not simply hide. They communicate their attack formations by mimicking the natural soundscape of the forest. Scattered through the dense brush, hunters imitate the exact calls of capuchin monkeys and tinamou birds to coordinate their movements without alerting their targets. If a logger or explorer hears too many tinamou birds call out in quick succession, it means the natural patterns of the forest have been hijacked. The tribe has already invisibly encircled them. From the shadows, they strike with 7-foot-long bamboo-tipped arrows, capable of dropping a target before a single human face is ever seen. The Mashco Puro have survived for centuries by turning the deep forest into a fortress. They maintain their boundary by ensuring any intrusion is met with a swift, lethal response. This survival-based existence relies on a constant, unyielding connection to physical reality. It is a world where sensory awareness is the only path to survival, a sharp contrast to the digital isolation that now defines the modern Western experience.
We spend our energy debating abstract future threats like artificial intelligence, blinding ourselves to the physical collapse of the very real ecosystems that provide our oxygen and fresh water. Conservationist Paul Rosalie spent 2 decades living on that boundary line, witnessing the disconnect between Western ignorance and the Amazon's destruction. When the Discovery Channel approached him for an expedition, he saw a chance to broadcast critical science on how toxins bioaccumulate in apex predators like the anaconda. But the network stripped the conservation data out of the final edit. They rebranded the footage into a sensationalized spectacle called Eaten Alive, focusing on a manufactured snake stunt to drive ratings. The media infrastructure prioritizes entertaining illusions over the raw reality of the jungle, actively sabotaging the communication of urgent environmental science. That Hollywood drama looks absurd compared to the actual existential nightmare closing in around the Mashco Puro. Their lethal defensive tactics are driven by a very real terror as their physical world shrinks by the day. Illegal logging operations are bulldozing inward, incinerating ancient millennia trees and clearing massive tracts of land for the global extraction machine. Close behind the chainsaws are cartel traffickers and illegal gold miners, poisoning the rivers and murdering any indigenous groups who stand in their path. Recently, dozens of Mashco Puro warriors were pushed to the absolute limit. They broke centuries of silence, stepping out onto a riverbank to confront a neighboring indigenous community. Across the water, they held up their hands and asked a single haunting question: how do we tell the bad guys from the good guys? The violent collision between the modern world and the last remnants of human isolation creates an impossible moral dilemma. The immediate human instinct is to step in and offer protection, but our very presence is a death sentence for these tribes. These populations have lived in total quarantine for centuries, possessing zero natural immunity. If an outsider introduces a virus like the common cold, it spreads exponentially. Without antibodies, the mortality rate approaches 100%. Rapid contact has historically annihilated indigenous cultures within a single generation, turning well-meaning explorers into accidental killers. The biological reality strips away the Western savior complex. To approach these people is to destroy them. True conservation in this context requires total, uncompromising separation. Protecting the Mashco Puro means raising funds to legally secure the borders of their forest, physically blocking loggers and cartels from ever crossing into their territory. This creates an ethical mandate that feels counterintuitive to our modern values. Once the land is secured, we must turn our backs and leave them to the darkness of the canopy. Preserving their world means intentionally denying them access to modern medicine, to advanced technology, and the connection defining our lives. Civilization. Is it a privilege or a cage? Subscribe to the CEO Brief and let us know in the comments if you believe civilization is a privilege to be protected or a psychological cage.